Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I figured today I would film a little bit earlier this time around and have, just like a coffee chat, just a chill conversation over coffee. I don't know how much of a difference that makes for you, obviously, in terms of what time of day I film it, but I just figured I would share that. So welcome back. Today's topic is sort of one that was inspired by a conversation I had recently with one of my friends. And I just figured I could, share it out there with everyone else in case it feels like it, in case it applies to anyone else or can help anyone else as well, because my friend said it was helpful. So maybe it'll help you as well. But this is specifically about when it comes to you and your relationship with your job. And I think oftentimes it's very normal or very standard for people to feel insecure when it comes to relationships, whether it be actual dating relationships or relationships with their job. And I feel like we don't talk about how to tackle it when it comes to jobs. So, in the instance of my friend, they actually just started a new position somewhere. And a lot of things that they were struggling with is just, I guess, the idea of getting feedback. And they were concerned a lot about whether or not they were doing a good job because they weren't necessarily getting like regular feedback. And I feel like this can happen a lot to us, especially nowadays when we're either hybrid or remote, when you're not seeing your team face to face often and you're just interacting over emails. It's a lot harder to know whether you're doing a good job or not, or whether or not they like your work. And sometimes we can find ourselves getting a little bit insecure or paranoid and kind of worrying about that aspect when we're not getting just regular feedback. Because I think oftentimes with our jobs, our bosses or coworkers are very good about giving like small critiques here and there if it's something they need fixed. But otherwise, they might not be as vocal when it comes to giving positive reinforcement. And that might not be because they don't think you deserve it. It just, they're busy and doing their day-to-day jobs, and that's not necessarily something that's occurring to them unless something, amazing stands out. That might not be their first instinct. And then we're left over here wondering, what does this person think? And so when I was talking to my friend, and this can happen at any stage. This doesn't necessarily only happen when you've just started a job, but it is, of course, more likely to happen when you've just started a job. But so I was talking to my friend and I was saying that they sounded a lot like they were in a relationship, like they sounded, or like a situationship, honestly. Like they sound like they were in like they were dating someone that was sending mixed signal and then just waiting by the phone and hoping this person texts, and why aren't they texting in it? And I was like, this is not how it should feel. Like this is not how you should feel on job. Now that being said, obviously it's totally normal to feel this way, but long term, you shouldn't be feeling this way. Like it's not sustainable, and I don't think it's necessarily so. It's difficult because it's such a natural thing to feel, but the reason I say that you shouldn't be feeling this way and shouldn't feel as if you're like, chasing after someone in a relationship or something like that is because this is your job at the end of the day. And your job shouldn't make you feel insecure. A random boy you're talking to can and probably will, and that's not great either. But when it comes to a job where you work every day, like you already have the job, you're already in the relationship, right? So like you should feel secure knowing that A, you already got the job, so they liked you for a reason, and then B, you kind of have to understand that this is a partnership with you and your boss and you and your job. And the understanding here is that if there is feedback to be given to you, you have to trust them enough to give that feedback. So what I mean by this is that sure, on occasion it's perfectly fine to ask for feedback, and ideally you would already have like one-on-ones with your boss anyway, during which this could be broached. But if there are none scheduled and you want to, especially when you first started, like ask for feedback, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But let's say you asked for feedback and you kind of got some, and then another week or two goes by and nothing's really changed in terms of that aspect, like you're still not sure how you're doing. I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea to ask for feedback again so quickly, because then it's almost like when you're dating someone and you're like, you like me, right? And you're just like constantly asking to be reassured, and once in a while it might be something that that person likes to give, but after a while they might start to get a little concerned as to why you need such constant reinforcement. Now, so two things with that. So again, in the scenario of where you asked for feedback, didn't really get, like, you didn't get anything negative, you didn't get anything positive, and then some time's gone by and you're feeling, insecure again, there's two ways to handle this. One is to trust the process. One is to trust that if something was awry, especially, that your job, your boss would come and tell you. We should not have to sit and wonder if we're doing a bad job and worry about the idea that instead of telling us, that our boss is just going to directly fire us. If that's first, like, there's several reasons why that should not be a concern. First of all, it's not on us to try to predict what's going on in our boss's mind, right? Like, that's just a recipe for disaster. Second of all, if that's really what they're going to do, then do you really want to work there? Like, if your team or your company, instead of talking to you when there is something that they don't like or a mistake is made, if instead they just bottle it all up and then fire you on a whim, like, I don't think I really want to work somewhere like that, because I wasn't given a proper chance to fix my mistakes. And it sounds like they didn't trust me then. And so I feel like it's just better for everyone to move on. So if that is a situation, that's not a healthy work environment in the first place. But that being said, otherwise, I think it's perfectly fine to ask for feedback once in a while, but otherwise you have to work on your own trust issues, and you have to learn to be okay with the idea that you're not necessarily going to hear every day or every week a feedback as to whether or not you're doing well. Sometimes it's just people are busy and it's not something on their mind, and more often than not, it's because there's nothing bad for them to say, so they're not saying anything. The second thing of the two things, right? So that's one thing, is to just kind of trust the process and let it go. Or you, sad but true, you kind of have to look elsewhere. If you're someone who wants more like hands-on feedback or reassurance from your team and your boss, and you've mentioned that once or twice and it's just not coming, and so therefore it's constantly on your mind and nothing will fix, and that's just something that, like, if that's just a dynamic that you need and your team isn't giving it to you, similar to how if it's like love languages with a relationship, if you're with someone who's not using words of affirmation and you're a huge, like, you're really into words of affirmation, then they're not necessarily going to change for you. It might be a better idea to just look for a different environment and look for another job. And that's easier said than done, obviously. And I'm aware of that. And I'm not just saying go quit your job based on that. But I am saying that if it's really greatly affecting your mental health, that it might be a good idea to just start looking at what else is out there. I think it's really important to be aware of our love languages, not only when it comes to a partner, but also when it comes to friends, and also when it comes to our work relationships. You might be words of affirmation, you might be gifts, which could be like time off or whatever that may be. There's several different ways in which the love languages would apply in a work environment, and I think it's good to be aware of what you do and do not seek in terms of feeling fulfilled at your job. So I think that there's nothing wrong with wanting all this, but I think it's so important to just make sure that at the end of the day that you're in a partnership or a um, corporate environment where you're giving them trust and they're giving you trust back, and that way you're feeling secure at the end of the day, because otherwise it's not going to make sense in the long haul. And our mental health due to our job is so important, especially in America where we spend so much time at work. We want to make sure we're feeling fulfilled in that regard. And I think it is perfectly okay to recognize when your needs aren't being met and to do something about it, whether it be to then compromise or to make a change. But yeah, so let me know if this is something that's ever happened to you, how you've dealt with it. I'd love to hear how everyone else deals with these sorts of struggles, because I feel like we just don't talk about these aspects of work as much in terms of just um, yeah, insecurities or confidence issues that can come up at the job. So thank you so much for watching, and tune in next week. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday.